Much for joining us for Tech Tips Live, as always on the third Thursday of each month. This month, we are going to be going over the new features in 9.5. And yes, thank you, Jacob, for moving on to the next slide. I think most all of you know me. I'm Phil Mason. I'm the Vice President of Business Development here at Hertzler Systems. And joining me today to be a technical resource is Jacob Shetler. You want to say hi, Jacob?
Hey, everybody.
All right. So Jacob's going to run us through the new features and how those can benefit you all, and you might be able to use those. I know some of you have moved up to 9.5. Some of you may be considering it and want to see some of the new things that are in there. So we will go through that. Jacob's got about 8, 9, 10 items to look at, so I won't hold us up. If you have questions during the session, you can put them in the chat, or there is also Q&A up there. You could put it in there as well. I will be monitoring that, and then we will leave some time at the end. So Jacob, I will get out of the way and take it away.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Phil. As Phil said, I'm Jacob Shetler, the Cloud Product Manager at Hertzler Systems, and I'm going to be going over some of the really interesting and useful features that we released in 9.5. Version 9.5 of GainSeeker was released at the beginning of June, so it's been out for about 3 months now. And these are the major features that we're going to be going over in today's session. Look at a Python improvement to COM ports, specifically when they're locked, expanded OPC UA support, and then we've got a bunch of demos at the end of the session that will take up a majority of the session. So I'm really excited to show off a lot of these features. The first feature is a Python improvement. This is a new right-click menu in the Python editor called Check Syntax. So we added a syntax checker that tells you whether or not you have any errors in your Python script before you try and run it. So this is just doing static analysis of your code. It isn't actually running your code to see if there are issues with like files that you're trying to access that don't exist or something like that. But it will let you check your syntax of your code before you try and run it. It'll tell you exactly where the error is, what line number it occurred on, what column index or what character the error started on. And that way you're able to analyze your code and check to see if there are going to be any errors before you run it. Looking at COM ports, we know that sometimes it can be really unclear while you're running a code that is trying to read data from a serial device or from a COM port, and that sometimes it's really, you don't know why the COM port is locked. So we improved the error message that you get when you do this. This happens in Inspection Editor or in PC Collect usually. Usually this happens because another program's locking the port. So we improved the error message here. And the other thing that we did was we added a list of COM ports that actually are available. So let's say that somebody, disconnected a device and plugged it back into another USB port, or maybe they disconnected it and plugged it into the same one and the computer happened to reassign the COM port. We now have a much more helpful error message that will tell you exactly what COM ports are available. So you can spend a lot less time debugging errors around that.
So Jacob, I don't know, I understand it could be a long list. Are there other errors that people could be expecting with that COM port? Or I also understand the whole shift as more and more computers become more USB centric, and those mimicking and that dynamic reassignment that goes as opposed to our PCs in the old days where you had just 2 COM ports and you knew which ones they were.
Right. Yeah, usually you don't have access to a COM port because another program is trying to read or write to it. That's the most common issue that we see. And then the next most common is that it got reassigned to a different number. Yep.
Yeah, and I've heard just even things that we don't always think about, but it is a modern reality of a somebody unplugging a COM port that was hooked to a measurement device to plug in their phone charger, and then when they go plug it back in, it's been reassigned, and boom, we're not finding it.
Yep.
Great.
The next item is expanded OPC unified architecture support. So the OPC Foundation expanded the types of nodes you can define for OPC UA or unified architecture. So in addition to string and GUID identifiers, which are globally unique identifiers, GainSeeker already supported string and GUID identifiers for OPC UA, but did not support numeric nodes. So if you have an OPC server that has numeric nodes, you can now read from them starting in GainSeeker 9.5. Okay, I now have 5 features I'm going to demo for you, 2 in GainSeeker charts, 1 in system administration, and then 2 that have to do with inspections. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my other monitor here, stop the slideshow, and pull up GainSeeker so we can start going through the demo. So you should be seeing GainSeeker charts here, and I've got a control chart of my chocolate chip cookie packages that I'm measuring the package weight of. It's supposed to be 16 ounces. And the first thing I'm going to show is the new feature called Send to Power BI. We know that a lot of our customers are using external BI tools to pull data together from different systems, or just to create reports that they can share across their corporation. And so we added support to send data directly from GainSeeker charts to Power BI. Before using this feature, you need to make sure that you have a Power BI application set up in Azure Active Directory and get the resulting client ID for that application. The instructions on how to do that are in the manual for 9.5, and you can access that using the help contents link. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that before they try and use this feature. So the new feature that we added is accessed through the Send To menu. So on basically any chart or any data table, there's now a new option on the right click, Send to Power BI. If I click this, it lets me choose a data set name, and that's how the data gets stored in Power BI. And then there's a radio button for whether you want to delete the existing data in the data set and just recreate it with the new data, or if I want to keep appending data onto the data set. There's also a place where I can set up my Power BI account. The first time you come in here, you'll click Add. I already have one set up, and I'm doing that with Edit. This app client ID is what I was just talking about. You'll need to get that from Azure Active Directory, so you know. So GainSeeker Charts knows where to send the data. You can also set up your username and password, or if your organization uses multi-factor authentication or MFA, then you use this box and you'll be prompted to log in using a Microsoft dialog when you actually try and send data. Settings for this are stored on the workstation. And so when you continue to pull up this account, you won't have to re-enter this data every time. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on this screen. And it'll pull up a dialog, say from Microsoft saying, hey, GainSeeker's trying to access your account. Please log in and give it access. So I did that, and then data was successfully uploaded. So if I switch over to Firefox here, where I have my Power BI account pulled up, after a second here, it should refresh. Yep, there it is. And this is the data set that I just uploaded. So from here, it's super easy to start creating a report. You just click on the data set, click as formatted table as an example. And then over here on the right in this data set, you'll see all the data that you would normally see when you pull up a data table in GainSeeker. So if I were to do something like add part number, maybe the mean, and you can also see that there's traceability included in this. So I've already started creating a report here in Power BI. So this feature, the intent of this feature is really to make it really easy to send data from GainSeeker to an external system. We know that's really important for a lot of people. And so we're trying to make that easier. The other thing that we added is command line parameters. So if you want to start Power BI, or if you want to start GainSeeker charts and automatically send that data to Power BI on a recurring basis, say at the beginning of every week or even at the beginning of every day, you could set up a shortcut or a scheduled task in Windows that automatically opens GainSeeker charts and sends that data to Power BI without any actual interaction from you.
So Jacob, I've got a question from Andy.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of just answered it. He said, if you already have a data set and replace it, so with your checkboxes you've got there, if you're just replacing that data set, will that just update your Power BI visuals?
I am not sure. That's a good question.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
All right.
I think we'll do that or not.
All right. If anybody else from the Hertzler team who's on maybe knows the answer to that, or Andy, I'm sure you'll test it out when you get a chance.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying is if instead of doing a new one, if you're replacing, it would kind of make sense if you have that all set up, it would just reproduce. Yeah. Andy's got to figure it out. He's on it. All right. Super.
All right. The next item that I'm going to be talking about is being able to search for related data in the system. So let's say that you're looking at a control chart and you see some points that are out of spec or going out of control, having a bad trend, and you want to find other data in the system that maybe has the same serial number or the same date code as that point you're looking at. So we added a new feature in 9.5 called Find Related Data. And if you click on a point on a control chart, right-click on a point, you can pull up a dialog that lets you find data that's similar to the point you're looking at. So let's say, for example, that I'm looking at this control chart, and I see that at the beginning of this control chart, a lot of the points are oscillating back and forth, and quite a few of them up here are above spec. If I right-click on one of these points, I now have a new option called Find Related Data. When I click on that, it pulls up this list that says, here are all the traceability values for that point. Which one would you like to inspect further? I can also then choose whether I want to find SPC or DMS data or both, and what date period I'm looking at. So if I want to just limit it to the current month or current week, I'm able to do that. In this case, I see that a lot of these points happen at the same time, and so I want to pull up the data that also has the same date code as that issue I was looking at. In this example, you could also use this to pull up data related to a specific serial number. If I click OK here, then I'm going to get two different data tables, one for SPC and one for DMS, with all the data in the system for every standard that has the traceability date code set to the date code I selected. I can then duplicate this chart. Let's say I was originally looking at SPC data, that control chart of the variation that was happening for that date code. But now, because I have a DMS chart open, I can duplicate it to a Pareto. And now I'm looking at all the defects that happened for that specific traceability. So the point of this feature is that it makes it really easy to go from, hey, I'm looking at this chart, I've got this interesting point, and I want to view all of the data that is similar to the point that I was interested in. The other thing this will allow you to do is check all of the data in the system for a particular serial number. So let's say that you had a return and you wanted to look up all the measurement data or all the defects that were collected for a specific serial number. That menu makes it really easy to do that. The next feature I'm going to be showing is in the system administration module. In version 9.5, we added the ability to import users from a CSV. So underneath the users menu in system administration, there's now two new options: import from CSV and download CSV template. So I'm going to click on download CSV template and it'll ask me, where do I want to save this? And then it opens up the CSV for me. So you can fill out this template for as many users as you want. Let's say I'm going to create a new user for me. Put myself in the Tech Tips Live configuration. Maybe I'm an analyst. And my email is jacob@redset.com. And I speak English. And maybe I want myself to change my password the next time I log in. So in this example, I'm only filling it out for one row. You could fill this out for as many rows as you want. And then I'll save that. And then if I go back to the users menu and click import from CSV, I can select the CSV I just downloaded. And then it gives me a preview of the CSV that I'm about to import. This is just a way to double check that GainSeeker is reading your CSV correctly and gives you a chance to click confirm or cancel before you actually do the import. As I was filling out that CSV, you probably noticed that I didn't fill out all the columns. Most of the columns are optional. The only ones that you have to fill out are name, configuration, and role. Those are the only three that are required for users. So then when I click OK here, it'll import the user, tell me, hey, that import worked, and I created one user. And here it is in the list. I don't actually want this user, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So you can use this feature to batch create users, which should be much quicker than clicking around the interface. So when you need to create a bunch of users all at once, maybe you're expanding to a new location or a new department, this should give you a way to really easily create a lot of users rather than right-clicking on logins and creating a new user over and over and over. The last two features that we're going to look at today that were added in 9.5 are in Inspection Editor and PC Collect. The first one is the ability to organize Python scripts using folders. So you can see over here on the left-hand side that there's a new tab called Script Folders. Most people are probably used to seeing this interface when they open up the Python editor. But now if you click on Script Folders, you'll get this really nice tree view of all the scripts in your system. The way you interact with scripts using this view is with the right-click menu. So when you click on a folder, you can do things like add a new script or add a new folder underneath it. So I'm going to create a new folder called Tech Tips Live. I can move scripts around from folder to folder. So if I right-click on, let's say, this one, I can move it and select a new folder. It moves into there. I can also right-click on a folder and create a new script. I can collapse folders just like you'd be able to in other tree views like Windows Explorer. And the other thing that's really useful is I'm able to import, export, and delete archive, and copy to configuration entire folders at a time. So if you're, you want to move a bunch of scripts from one configuration to another, you can right-click on a folder and do copy to configuration. It'll then do it for every script that's underneath that folder. Same with import and export. If you want to move things from one system to another, you can export an entire folder and then re-import it into another system. Delete will delete all of the folders and files that are children of the folder, so make sure you know what you're doing before you click that one on a folder. But if I first say move this script out of the Tech Tips Live folder, I can then right-click on that one, click delete, and it cleans up all of the scripts in the folders I just created. So this should make script management a lot easier for people that have, say, hundreds of scripts, or even if you don't have that many and you want to organize them by, say, what inspection they apply to. You could even organize them by the script type. So you could have, your first inspection, and then these are all my on-change scripts, or these are the scripts that apply to many inspections. So it should give people a way to organize their scripts a lot easier, so that they're a lot easier to manage.
I think, Jacob, it opens up a lot of possibilities, kind of depending on what kind of a manufacturer you are. Multi-site, you could have, if you're in a hybrid environment, you could have scripts by location, you could have them by product families. I know we've got some people on here that have different product families that are across different sites. It's really a nice little basic advance, but really makes it a lot easier for everybody.
Yeah, and I see there's a question here from Andy again about whether I can lock a folder like a script to prevent accidental delete. That is not something that we implemented, but we will take that into consideration for future versions.
Yeah, if you haven't been watching our chat, I would encourage you to open it up. There's been some good questions in there. Andy did ask a question about pulling multiple in the related data, doing multiple traceability fields, and we're not able to do that right now at the same time. However, you can cascade those. So like that example that Jacob did, you have the serial number. Well, then you could pick, once you get serial number data, that related data, you could right click, do the related data again, go another level, and so on. So you can step down through it and kind of do that slice the onion activity.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the last feature that I'm going to show today is the ability to show multiple charts or tables at the same time during a PC Collect session. So we know that this feature has been asked for a lot ever since PC Collect was released, maybe 9 years ago, and we're really happy that we're finally releasing it in 9.5. So I've got this really simple inspection here with 2 numeric inputs. If I go ahead and run this, you can see that I've got some charts over here on the right hand side. I've got a histogram and a control chart for each one of these inputs, but I'm not able to view all of them at the same time. So if I'm looking for both trends and using my control chart looking for trends, if I'm using my histogram to try and view the distribution, I have to switch back and forth between these different views. In 9.5, so we added the ability to display all of them at the same time. So if you go to the chart options under the sub-inspection, open that up, you get the chart manager, and if you edit a set of charts, there's now a new checkbox that says draw all charts in one panel. If I click this for an existing chart set or new ones that I create, then I'm going to go ahead and save and publish this and then run it. You can see that all 4 of those charts that I had are now all being displayed in the same side panel. So this is a really easy way to let you view lots of different types of visualizations for a particular data set, or in this case, 2 different data sets at the same time. There's a maximum of 16 charts that you can display at once, so that's a 4x4 grid. At that point, the charts become pretty small and not very worthwhile. So I would not recommend going up to 16, but we do support up to 16 charts. So the point of this feature is to give operators better visibility into distributions or trends, even looking at a data listing in a data table, all at the same time while they're entering data.
Jacob, Andy's asking about any color coding
Yes.
around those charts.
Andy, do you mean for color coding, do you mean like tying them to a numeric input color coding, or like real-time failure color coding?
Real-time failures.
Real-time failures. No, it will not have the real-time failure color coding based on the data point that was entered in that inspection. I think if that's what you're asking. Although you say the individual charts do it. If the individual charts do it, then this will also do it. This is just displaying many of them at the same time, but it's the exact same functionality of showing them one at a time.
Do you know, Jacob, did we test, is there any performance penalty for putting up that many charts? I mean, painting a screen, each of those iterations, that can add some time potentially?
It can, yeah. If you're going to draw 16 charts and each one of those charts, say, has 1,000 points in it, it'll definitely take a performance hit.
Yeah.
If you're just doing, 4 charts and they all have 25 or 50 points in it, that's pretty quick. You won't be able to notice a difference.
Yeah. Just something to think about as people start doing that. Great. All right. Well, here's all the things Jacob went over. We've got a couple minutes left. I appreciate the questions we've gotten so far. Any of the rest of you have any other questions on what Jacob has presented here for us today, and what we have going in 9.5? Please go ahead and throw it there in the chat or use the Q&A. We are happy to answer those questions. And while you got Jacob on the horn, and obviously you can see Byron's been jumping in on the chat too. So definitely a team effort here. So happy to answer any questions you might have. We did have, I did have an earlier question from the registration. Somebody was asking about Power BI in 9.4. I don't know if you want to respond to all that, Jacob. Part of my suggestion was, that's one of those places where in 9.4, you obviously can always export data out of GainSeeker in like a CSV file or an XLS, that kind of a format, and then do that more of an import into Power BI. With our now the send to, as you demonstrated today, we have a much more direct connection.
Yeah, like you said, I would recommend pulling up a data table, sending to Excel, or sending to a CSV, and then uploading it to Power BI. Yep.
Okay. All right, one more chance, folks. Why don't you flip us to the last slide there, Jacob? So our next Tech Tips Live is October 20th, and we are very excited to give everybody a sneak peek of GainSeeker Essential. And this is our new cloud SPC product. Jacob and our cloud team have been working hard on this for a couple of years. and Essentials is kind of the first level, a little more basic SPC program. And we're going to be demonstrating that, give you all a sneak peek on that. This is a product that we will, again, be starting to roll out. We have a couple places where we're in testing with it right now, some trials going on, and really getting good positive feedback from that. And over the time, we expect this to be a product that we will have some tiers. We will have the Essential, which is a little more basic, a Premier, and then an Enterprise. So it takes a long time to come up with a feature with a product that's as feature rich as GainSeeker on-prem. And so with the cloud, with our new Essential product, we are starting a completely new platform, new database systems, a pure cloud environment, and we're very excited to where this will take us and where this will we'll be able to provide solutions for companies across the whole spectrum, from the on-prem, very local, to hybrid of various sorts, and then a pure cloud type of an operation as well. So join us next month and we will show you some of that. And I know Jacob will be back on, and I probably will too, and we may have some other people on with us as well. So thank you so much for joining us for Tech Tips Live. Jacob, thanks a lot for taking us through 9.5.
Yep. Thanks everybody for your time today.
All right, thanks. And we'll see you all in about a month.